Well, moving on to other big story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with leaders from the US, Japan and Australia at the Quad Leaders Summit in Delaware. US President Joe Biden chose his hometown of Wilmington to host the summit for the Quad leaders. Well, in his opening remarks, Prime Minister Modi said that the Quad is not against anyone, but for a rules-based international order and respect for sovereignty. He also said that free, open, inclusive and prosperous Indo-Pacific is India's priority. Described the grouping as a force of global good. He added that Quad is here to stay, partner and contribute. At the summit, Quad leaders have appreciated India for its leadership role in the Indian Ocean. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that India is the predominant power in the Indian Ocean under Prime Minister Modi, and Biden also said that the US has things to learn from India's experience and leadership in the Indian Ocean.
I'm not afraid. I'm going to be okay. He knew.
Distinguished guests, the President of the United States.
Dad, this is God's truth. Dad, I'm not afraid. I'm going to be okay. He knew.
And, well, for more on the Quad Summit and the bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and US President Joe Biden, we have with us Mukesh Aghi, President and Chief Executive Officer of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. He's joining us live from New York. Welcome to World DNA, Mr. Aghi. Now, one common sentiment shared by all the Quad leaders in Delaware was that Quad is here to stay. Your assessment of that, and how perhaps do you see the Quad Summit as a critical platform of cooperation with complex geopolitical scenarios that we are witnessing, two wars in the backdrop, and of course China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, you have to understand, Quad started over 2 decades ago to handle humanitarian crisis. In time, it has become, I would say, become more formalized into a structural alliances between 4 nations. You have to understand, Quad is not just only about defense alliances, it is also morphing into economic alliances. You have 4 countries whose GDP is almost $35 trillion. So you look at secure supply chain, you look at artificial intelligence cooperation, look at cybersecurity, you look at basically exchange of technology between the 4 countries itself. So I think Quad is becoming a strong form of a partnership without being an alliance itself, and which gives a strategic autonomy to India while it pursues its own interests. But more important is it gives India strength, a platform to deal with a very assertive and aggressive China also.
But Mr. Aghi, do speak of how Quad gives India a platform to deal with all the geopolitical threats that the world faces. Just to follow up on that, how do you perhaps see New Delhi as a leader within the Quad, with Prime Minister Modi visiting both Kiev and Moscow, which was also brought up at the bilateral with US President Joe Biden?
Well, the G20 summit basically signaled that India can take a global role. And the successful joining of the African nation into G20 showed India's leadership. And it also showed that India can lead the global south very effectively and efficiently. Its relationship with Russia and also access to Ukraine showed very clearly that India can, if it wants to be, a peacemaker between 2 warring nations itself. What it has, the message Prime Minister Modi's leadership has sent is, yes, we are a growing economy. We are a $4 trillion, will be a $5 trillion economy by 2027. So it is a large market, which is basically lucrative to multinational companies. But more important, it's a market which can provide de-risking from China into supply chain also. It is a market which can innovate. The partnership in the Quad is not just limited to defense area, just not only technology, but we're talking about energy security. We're talking about with U.S. space cooperation, NASA partnership on the quantum side. So I think what we're seeing is while Quad is a platform, U.S.-India relationship is basically getting much, much stronger, deeper, and broader also.
Coming to the bilateral, like you also mentioned that the US-India ties have grown over the years. Many announcements were made from technology to defense production. But I want to talk to you about that statement made by the US President Joe Biden, where he says that I'm struck with our ability to find new areas of cooperation every time we meet. How do you read that statement coming out of the US President when he met Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
Well, it shows the leadership capability of the Prime Minister. He is able to come up with new opportunity, new solutions, and new partnership platform for both countries. For example, we are talking about not only just the space side, the NASA side, on the quantum side, but going beyond that. And I think it's important to understand U.S. is one of the largest investors in India. And India needs to basically quote these companies to come in to drive that 7-8% economic growth. So I think the statement, the innovative approach taken by the Prime Minister definitely has awestruck the President Biden. It also sends the comfort level message between the two leaders, the trust between the two leaders. So I would say that while President Biden stays on or somebody else comes in, the relationship will flourish and move in the positive direction.
Mr. Agi, President Biden will, of course, not stay on because he's not contesting the U.S. presidential polls. And just to follow up on that, this summit, the Quad Summit, the 6th Quad Summit, is also the farewell summit for the U.S. President and the Japanese Prime Minister. Do you think that the farewell of Biden and Kishida will shape Quad's future path?
I think, yes, leadership matters. We have President Biden, who basically has driven a very structural approach dealing with the Indo-Pacific and China, and Quad plays a very pivotal role in that area. I think he has set the platform. He has set the agenda. After January 2025, whoever the new leader is, this process will continue, because I think the cooperation, collaboration between the Quad nation, but more important between the two countries, India and United States, is a win-win value proposition, be it from people to people, be it from technology, be it to global capability centers, or be it to de-risking supply chain, or bringing in drugs into the, prescription drugs into the United States. So I believe that the platform which has been set up by President Biden will go on for the next 20, 30 years.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Agi, for joining us on World DNA with your insights.
Thank you.